Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening. Is there anyone here tonight for public participation on a topic that's not on the agenda? Hello to everyone who's here. Okay. No, none of that. And I also wanted to just ask if there were any announcements. Do we have any more state championships to announce? Or?
We've had quite a busy
Yeah.
winter season, so I think when Mark comes up, he can certainly talk about it. But Patrick,
Okay.
you said you had a DECA summary?
Well, I have an email from the DECA. I don't know if you were going to do it, so I don't want to steal your thunder.
Okay.
Okay. So first of all, Ms. Truve and Mrs. Anderson are the teachers, so I want to actually, thank them for their hard work. First, BHS had 14 freshmen qualify. 61 students qualified out of 800 at the district competition in December. And here's the ones that are, the students who receive 5th place or above here are qualified for the nationals, which will be in Nashville, Tennessee this year. And so Shiv Patel and Brianna Began, school-based enterprise, 1st place. Liam Brown and Shay Riley, school-based enterprise, gold certification. Ayush Shingavi, restaurant and food service management, 3rd place. And Aaron Rippon, principles of marketing, finished in 3rd place. So those folks all qualified for the nationals. And I also heard, I think the Winter Guard came in 1st in their competition this past weekend. So that was, I got to see that one. It was the same performance, right? The Sinatra, Come Fly With Me. So again, that was posted on the Facebook page a while back, but they won their competition with that performance. So congratulations to the Winter Guard.
Those are good announcements. And I do keep seeing, we had a wrestler who came in, was it All-State? And I'm sorry, I don't know the name, but maybe you can fill us. Sure, why don't we hear all the accolades? And we have so many amazing students and so many great things going on. I also saw all those announcements about the DECA students, and as Mr. Larkin said, thank you to the teachers who put a lot of time and effort into that.
Yeah, Sean couldn't be here tonight because he's actually attending the girls' hockey game down in Canton.
Oh.
They're playing Norwell. No wins last year, but 10 this year. They have 2 tournament wins so far. So
Great.
Fingers crossed for them tonight. It's going to be an uphill battle, but we're rooting for them. So he gave his regrets he couldn't be in attendance, but he wanted, on his behalf, just to update you. I think this is the most difficult time for our families, just because these 3 weeks of winter sports are like every night you're out. So it's tough, but it's fun watching the kids be successful. I was just telling Ms. Simon that we also had our spring winter play this year. We did reverse them this year. We used to do it in the fall. It was Antigone, and the kids did a fantastic job. It was the first time they attended the festival competition for these plays. They all have to be under 40 minutes. There's schools from all over the area. They didn't advance to the next round, but they got a lot of great feedback, and the kids really had a good experience. And Mr. Hill did a fantastic job with the kids, as he usually does. So
And if I could interject,
Sure, yeah, of
the
course, yeah.
performance was wonderful.
It was good,
The
yeah.
kids were great. Everything, the kids who did the lighting and everything was, they really did a really wonderful
Yeah.
job, and really congratulate them.
It was great. So the boys indoor track team, as they are usually successful, they had winning state relays and continue to be the top in the Middlesex League. The girls track team had a great season. Multiple athletes qualified for our state competition. Boys hockey won the Middlesex League. We got eliminated last night. We lost to Catholic Memorial 2-1. We were up 1-0 the whole game. They scored 2 goals in 40 seconds at the end of the game. It was a tough loss. But they were in that Super Division 1A tournament again. So Mr. Concession continues to do a great job with that team. I mentioned the girls hockey team who's playing tonight. Our boys basketball team had a really successful season. They're in the 3rd round of the tournament tomorrow night at Tewksbury High School at 7 o'clock. They're playing against the #1 seeded Beverly team, which should be a terrific game. Girls basketball had a fantastic season. They had a home tournament game against Drake last Tuesday night. Yes, thank you. They lost in an overtime game to a tough Drake team, which was tough to see. But a lot of students returning next year, so Ms. McKay will have a great season next year again. Our wrestling, the Soda Brothers continue their streak. As it usually is, we have, to Dr. Conti's pleasure, I'm sure, as a former wrestler, always a couple of kids who end up being state championships. So the Soda Brothers this year, and they also play 6 different weight classes in 3 of the states. 1 state champion, Camp Soda, and then qualifying for the New Englands, which is Saturday at Methuen. Boys swim qualified in a relay team for the first time in 6 years, and both our girls and boys gymnastics team both continue to have great seasons. I think we're one of a handful of teams left in New England, so the commitment to that program, again, just shows the town's commitment to those kids that do participate in gymnastics. It's been eliminated, especially on the boys' side of the competition in many, many schools across the region, so it's great that they're still able to compete. So that's the
Thank you.
winter season in a
That's
nutshell.
great.
You're welcome.
We're glad to hear all of that. Yeah. Any further comments on that or other announcements? Okay, I guess the other announcement is that this Friday night is trivia night for the Burlington Education Foundation, which is a fabulous group that supports our teachers and our programs wonderfully. So anyone who's participating, I want to thank you, and I will hopefully see you there Friday night along with some of us. So any other old business, Dr. Conti? No? Oh, okay. Nope?
No.
Okay.
Answering Steve.
All right. So now we're on to new business. And the first item is Student Opportunity Act.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And again, for folks watching, if this appears like an abbreviated agenda, it is. It's just an added budget meeting, so we're going to get right to budget. The Student Opportunity Act, we're not going to take a vote on tonight, but I think it's worth, just because it's a new process, having a conversation about why it exists and what we have to do. So the state put together a foundation budget review commission 4 years ago that examined the amount of state funding that gets sent to local communities for use in public schools. That money is called Chapter 70 money in Massachusetts, so that's a form of revenue that we have. The Chapter 70 formula hadn't been addressed in 25 years since ed reform in about 1993. And inequities, because the Chapter 70 formula, which was used in 1993 to provide, again, to define what the minimum level of public education should be, defined as the foundation level, it was to establish state funding that would even out overall school spending at that time, so that there would be, again, a minimum level, a foundational level of public education provided, and then some equity across different communities. So there are communities where 90% of their funding comes from the state or federal government and very little comes locally, and there are communities like Burlington where the vast majority of our funding is local dollars, and maybe 10 to 15% comes from state and federal sources. So there's all these different pieces. A lot of the foundational aspects of budgeting, like healthcare costs, like special education costs, hadn't been addressed in 25 years. And obviously those costs have changed over that time, so things have gotten out of whack. We typically, during our budget process, have an expense side only conversation. Your budget book is an expense side conversation. We don't discuss revenues, and there's, I think, good reason for that. The main reason is that there are many communities that spend over that foundation level that had been established 25 years ago, and Burlington is one of those communities. So there are also communities in Massachusetts, I think there's about 168 that spend at the foundation level. So again, we spend well above the foundation, which is why I always say the community is very generous towards public schools in terms of the regulatory requirements. Foundation level spending, though, I'm going to say is inadequate, and I don't think it is a it by no means meets the needs of kids in 2020 in terms of their education. So foundation level spending are class sizes of 30, fee-based programs, limited programming. It's just not a situation that I think is healthy. So I just want to make sure that Burlington is recognized for spending over foundation. So the state legislature passed the Student Opportunity Act in response to the Foundation Budget Review Commission. 85% of the dollars associated with the Student Opportunity Act are going to about 15 to 20 communities. Those are high poverty communities. The rest is being distributed through districts. We are largely getting $30 a student as sort of an addition to Chapter 70. I think the biggest impact, positive impact for districts like Burlington in the Student Opportunity Act is they are going to allow special ed transportation for out-of-district placements to be added to the circuit breaker. So right now we can only use circuit breaker dollars for tuition. We can't use circuit breaker for transportation, and school committee knows, Ways and Means knows that in many cases transportation can be as expensive as the tuitions for out-of-district placements. As with any circuit breaker, though, it all depends on what's funded. So even though the regulation says that we're eligible for the reimbursement and they're going to phase that in over 3 years, if circuit breaker isn't funded adequately, then they won't be allowing us that reimbursement. That could really help. When you look at the monthly report and you look at our accommodated account and you look at some of the transportation costs associated in our accommodated account, we may be getting some reimbursement back for those times over. Because some districts are getting a significant amount of additional state money, the legislature also empowered the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education to ask districts to report how they're spending those additional dollars. So it was another mandated report that we have to do. Many of us complained and we advocated that there needs to be certainly not an equivalent reporting process, because for many of us, we're getting very limited dollars, and there may be communities that could be getting $10 or $15 million. So we shouldn't have the same reporting requirement. And I think the state listened to us, and they created a short form and a long form. So the differential is if you're getting over $1.5 million additional dollars as identified in the Student Opportunity Act, you have to fill out a long form and a longer process. And the under 1.5 million, you're going to have to fill out a short form, which is what we're responsible for. They've identified in every community the amount of dollars that you're getting through Chapter 70. Again, one bucket, Chapter 70, but they've identified the dollars in that bucket that are associated with the Student Opportunity Act. So in Burlington, that's about $101. $107,000, about $100,000. That's identified as being in the Student Opportunity Act. I hate to ever say $100,000 isn't a lot of money if we are walking around with it individually, but in the grand scheme of things, in terms of Chapter 70, it's not going to make or break our operational budget. But I'm saying we still have to now report to the department how we plan on spending the Student Opportunity Act money separately from the rest of Chapter 70, even though it all comes to us at one time. We're responsible for creating this report. The state also has made some suggestions as to areas where you can spend this money. Many of the areas we're spending Chapter 70 money in those areas already. And they've also requested that different constituencies contribute, or at least made aware of, have a voice in how the Student Opportunity Act money is being spent. So principals are having conversations with their school councils, which have both teacher representation and parent representation, and we're talking about some different ideas as to how to spend the $100,000. Again, the difference for this committee and the difference for Ways and Means is I've been here a while. We haven't had revenue conversations as a part of the budget process. With the Student Opportunity Act, we're going to have a revenue conversation about this $100,000. We're going to have to go through the budgeting process, and our report is due April 1st. So at the next meeting, we're going to basically share how we're going to spend $100,000 in the grand scheme of everything, but we have to report that separately to the state as a result of the Student Opportunity Act. So the point of tonight is not to go on and on. I don't need a vote, but just to understand why you're going to be looking at $107,000 separately at our next meeting. We're going to talk about the process, and we're going to be identifying some things that fit the categories that the state says we need to fit in order to spend this $107,000. We can have philosophical arguments as to whether it's new money, not new money. Again, it's coming in as part of Chapter 70, part of that big state bucket that we have. But we have to partition the money that's associated with the law, and then we have to report separately on how we're spending that money. So those are the new requirements under the Student Opportunity Act. So instead of going through this all next week, if any of you have questions, if you want to read about it, if you wonder why we're having a separate sort of conversation about $107,000, it's because of the law that passed in October, I think. So that's the Student Opportunity Act.
So it was long, but I think you covered most of the points, and if people are still confused, which would not be surprising, they can certainly ask, people later. But there are also specific areas where the state has said they would like to see districts using this money, and were there 2 or 3 categories that we were looking at? Is that right?
I
Can
think
you
we were looking
identify
at
them?
social emotional learning, Patrick,
okay.
and student.
The wording is, I'm looking for the wording,
Okay.
sorry. I didn't have it open right now. But it's student support, like programs that support students. So, for instance, a before-school breakfast program might be something like that. So, that's
Right.
one of the options.
Okay. All right, so we'll hear more about it next week?
You will, but it's
Okay.
going to be a new conversation for us in regards to the budget process because of the new legislation that has passed, and then the new requirement that we fill out this short form as to how we spend the money.
I do have the categories. Enhanced core instruction, targeted student supports, which would be the area where you could add something like a breakfast program. Talent development is diversifying the workforce is another focal point that we've had. So those are
Right.
3 areas that would be acceptable.
Okay, good. Yes, Mr. Nelson?
Just a quick question. What's the total amount of Chapter 78 that we're anticipating for next year?
And we're all looking at you, Ms. Kasha, if you know, or if you can find it.
We just got it, so.
While you're
We can-
looking, does
okay.
anyone have any additional questions about this topic? Okay. So,
No, so we'll get to
yeah,
that. So,
okay, so we'll get back to that. So should we move on to the next topic, and then you'll let us know when you have
Yes.
that? Okay, so don't worry about it. So the next topic is the 2020-2021 Burlington High School School Choice. We're having a public hearing. So do we
Yeah.
need a motion to
I think
open
we
that?
do now.
Okay, so,
Madam Chair, I move that we open the public hearing on school choice for the 2020-2021 school year.
Second.
okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? The chair votes aye. It's 500.
So again, school choice is something we've participated in, I think, for 12 years, I think, since I've been here. We do it at the high school level only. Mark, we've done 12 spots at the freshman level.
10.
And 10, I'm sorry, 10
10,
spots at
5,
the
5.
freshman, 10 spots at the freshman level, and then 5 sophomore, 5 junior, and 5 senior. We rarely fill all the spots. It just gives us some flexibility and another tool to use to help kids sometimes who are mobile or are struggling. And Mark, if you want to comment on the choice program as well, you run a lottery. It's been something that's been successful for the high school.
Yeah, so the regulations, most applications come in at the 9th grade. We wait until late in the spring when we finish our master schedule. If we have space available, depending on who matriculates up from the middle school, we do have a certain percentage of kids that move to Shawsheen Tech or private schools every year. That's remained pretty steady. So depending on how the master schedule works out, we'll identify a certain amount of slots that will open up. I don't think in the last 10 years we have filled 10 slots in the 9th grade. We typically take maybe 4 or 5, and there is a lottery system is how the regulation works. And then a lot of times at the older grades, we tend not to see a lot of applications coming in, but oftentimes we can support students who have come up through the Burlington school system since their elementary grades. And for whatever reason, family circumstances, the family moves out of town when a kid is a junior or a senior. And it's been very helpful for us to help keep those kids through graduation with their peers, with their classmates, and give them a Burlington High School diploma. Obviously, the Burlington housing market is hot. Some families have a hard time sustaining the housing here, so it has supported a lot of families over the years. So it's been a successful program, and is obviously a source of some money coming back to the district for accepting these kids.
So once you commit to a kid in ninth grade, you're committed to that student through graduation. So accepting someone in ninth grade means they're here for 4 years, or we hope they're here for 4 years. And then the state, I think the rate now is about $5,500 of state money follows the kid through. So, and again, we're spending far in excess of $5,500 a kid per year. But what sort of the way the choice program works is we're already paying for the heat, the lights, the curriculum, the teacher salary. So it's not like we have to carry a per pupil cost to make the program work. And again, we don't do it for the revenue. We really do it to have some flexibility to help students out. We're finding that even in a place like Burlington, there's more mobility and people moving around for jobs, and it can help us create some stability in a kid's life. Where does the choice money go? The choice money goes to the revolving account that you see on the monthly report, the financial report that you have, and that would be the school choice revolving account amount that you see. Regulations at state are very flexible in terms of how the choice money can be spent. And Mrs. Monaco, I think a couple months ago, you asked for some detail on how we were spending the choice money, and we can bring that to you periodically if you have questions. But
And just of note, the students that come are all responsible for transportation. We're not obligated to transport them. They have to do that on their own.
Okay. Are there any questions about the school choice program by the committee or comments? Yes, Mrs. Monaco?
Actually, Eric, it was school choice, it was international, it was all those
Yes.
little funds. So Mark, if you had 10 kids come in as freshmen, then you could take, let's say they stay, so you could then take another 5 as sophomores, and there'd be a total of 15?
Potentially, yes, yeah.
And the same with another 5 as juniors, another 5 as seniors?
So theoretically, yeah, if you, like the class of 2020 this year, so if we added the maximum amount of
Yeah.
students every year, there could at graduation be 25 additional students.
Okay. I just wanted to be sure.
We've never come close to that, though, just,
No,
yeah.
so why do you have a lottery if you only have 5 kids? Why do
We
you need-
typically only will do it at the ninth grade level, because that's where we see the most amount of applications come in. Once a student is settled at a particular high school, they tend not to want to move.
So how can you do, if you don't have 10 applicants?
We oftentimes get 10 applicants for the freshman grade, but we don't always take them. So again, based on
okay.
numbers, we don't necessarily aim to fill the 10 slots. We may, after we run the master schedule, say, out of the 10 for the ninth grade, we're only going to take 4 or 5.
Okay.
And so
I
if
get
we
it.
have 7 or 8 applications or 10, we would run the lottery at that time.
Thanks.
Other comments or questions? Okay,
I'll make a motion, Madam Chair, that the school committee approve for the 20-21 school year, limited school choice
Point
by
of
admit.
information,
do we need to
I think we have to
close
the public
the
hearing
public
Oh,
hearing
okay.
first?
All right, I make a motion, Madam Chairman, that we close the public hearing.
All right.
Second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, chair votes aye, 500. So,
Madam Chair, I make a motion that the school committee approve for the 20-21 school year, limited school choice by admitting non-Burlington resident students for a maximum of 10 students in grade 9, 5 students in grade 10, 5 students in grade 11, and 5 students in grade 12.
Second.
okay, any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, the chair votes aye. It passes 500. Thank you for bringing that to us, Mr. Sullivan.
I think I'm next on the agenda, too. But
And
I'm not
yes,
sure if
you
you're
can
going in
just
that
sit
order, but-
right there, because the next item is the Burlington High School Planning for Success. This is a first reading. Do you want to give a background on that?
I
Dr.
do.
Conti? Okay.
Again, schools are required to present an annual school improvement plan, and I think doing it annually, there's some sense to it. I also think nothing we do ever sort of comes to a complete conclusion or beginning and end in a year anyway. So the school improvement planning process we've been doing is the state process called Planning for Success. So those two are analogous processes. So Mark is presenting at this point his school improvement plan in terms of the Planning for Success document. So Mark, I know it took a lot of time. I know you involved a bunch of faculty, your department chairs. So again, I want to thank you for putting in the time and creating a new 3-year plan moving forward.
Yeah, so I think it will look very similar to our previous plan, like Dr. Conti mentioned. I don't think that a lot of this work ever ends. I think it's constantly evolving in terms of what it looks like and how we're supporting students and staff at the high school. I think if you've heard from other schools, you'll notice that the 4th column was taken out. That was facilities and operation. And I think that was a conscious decision because, you know, in our improvement plan, I'm not sure that's something that staff and students really need to be concerned about for the most part. I think that's stuff that the business office obviously takes care of. So the 3 objectives: learning, equity, and culture and relationships. Rightfully so, you'll notice that the learning objective is the most robust one, that has the most amount of initiatives, and under those initiatives, instruction, targeted, culturally sensitive, personalized, and explicit, inclusive practices, social emotional learning, and we've noted computer science as one of our strategic initiatives under learning. Under equity, cultural competence, teacher capacity, and social emotional learning. And under cultural relationships, collaboration, communication, and cultural competence. Under learning, you'll notice that our overarching goal is to empower all students through a rigorous, dynamic, relevant curriculum to include the academic, social, emotional, and psychological support to ensure student growth and achievement. I think we were just here recently presenting the program of studies, so I think you'll notice a lot of the variety of curriculum and programmatic offerings that we have for students support that particular work. And you'll notice some of the things that are new, one of which, and it's born out of the NEAS process. Mr. Larkin was at our last high school faculty meeting, and we started the Vision of a Graduate process, which I believe you're all familiar with. Talking about what a Burlington High School graduate should look like, what skills they should have, what competencies they should be able to acquire when they get that Burlington High School diploma. So we've just started that work. You'll notice some other ones that I'll just highlight. Like I just mentioned, developing and promoting the BHS program to assist students in developing a post-secondary life plan. And I'll just mention that one quickly because the career and post-secondary exploration committee does a lot of work in terms of trying to have students identify what they want to do after high school. Not that they have to make like a finite decision that I want to be a lawyer, I want to be a teacher, but we really try to have them start thinking about what they want to do, and it culminates in an internship experience, which you've all heard about. We have the whole entire senior class minus about 40 kids that are participating this year. And it's not necessarily the final determination for every kid that goes out on it, but a lot of kids that think they may want to teach will go to a local elementary school and spend 6 weeks at Francis Wyman and come back and just say, actually, no thank you. Or, yeah, that's exactly what I thought I wanted to do. But we have students who have interned at the police department. We have students at Leahy Clinic, at a variety of our elementary schools. So they go on a whole host of different experiences, which has really been good. And Joe in the counseling department does a lot of work from when they come in freshman year to try to help identify the 4-year plan and align that to some of their post-secondary plans too. And you'll notice that NEASC is still on there. I will note that we just finished our 2-year report. Our next reporting cycle is 5 years. And then obviously we get back into the work of the reaccreditation process at that point. 7, 8 years, we start looking at the self-assessment, what their process looks like at that point. I don't know for sure. So that was under instruction, just a couple of notes. Under inclusive practices, the first one you'll note is the revised daily bell schedule, which is obviously a major initiative for the high school next year. I've talked to you all a couple of times about that. We are still preparing that, our next professional development day next week. Teachers have the opportunity to continue to plan on restructuring their curriculum to meet the longer blocks of time, and just they've had opportunities all year to do this, but just to really get ready for that transition so they're ready for students in the fall. And you'll notice, I'll just note another one, the Keys to Literacy program, which I think we're in year 5 or 6 now at the high school. The district is being trained at this point, and it's been a very successful program. It's comprehension and literacy standards across all subjects and discipline, whether it's note-taking. Some teachers are on the writing standards of the Keys to Literacy program. So it really is just a shared way to approach literacy at the high school, regardless of your content area, because the underlying goal of that is that literacy is everybody's responsibility, not just the English department. So that's been a very successful initiative that has been implemented for several years now. Social emotional learning, which you obviously heard a lot about, promote the well-being and social emotional resilience of all students through the development of their social emotional learning. There's a district committee that's looking at that work to identify best practices and come up with expectations for the different schools and programs to address the needs of kids. And one thing that we've talked a lot about at the high school, but have not yet really come to a common understanding on how best to address it, but it is something we want to continue to look at, which is to evaluate homework and assessment policies and consider changes to those at the high school. Then the last one was just computer science. You've heard a lot about it. We have, in my budget request, you'll note that I am requesting an additional computer science teacher, which we'll talk about later. But we are trying to, not just computer science, but all STEM-related fields. We're trying to identify different ways for kids to access those types of curriculums and develop pathways of what that might look like for them at the high school. The program is growing. We have an additional amount of sections that we could offer next year if we have the appropriate staffing. But it is something that we are specifically trying to increase student opportunities in. Under equity, and again, I think you're aware that there's an equity committee that has is working to address some of these things. But you'll see there continues to look to hire and support effective teachers representing a broader range of diversity that might look more like the students that are in our buildings. Ensure school practices, policies, and handbooks are responsive to student needs and the cultural needs and strengths of all students and staff. Under teacher capacity, that's mostly professional development and making sure that teachers have access to anti-bias, diversity, competence, mental health, and inclusive practices, and that our classrooms are safe, caring, and responsive to all students' needs and well-being. Under social emotional learning, again, trying to foster positive relationships between students and staff, promotes students' academic and social emotional wellness. And again, one way we're specifically doing it is through the incorporation of the Flex Block with the new schedule. Try to celebrate student accomplishments in a variety of ways and develop annual themes such as our essential question, which this year is what is authentic happiness. At our next staff meeting, we're going to start talking about it for next year. And the goal with that is to try to get, last year it was a power of one, how you as an individual can impact your local and greater community. We try to do that so all teachers can try to intertwine the themes of that essential question in their classroom activities. And then the last one, the culture and relationships.
Mark, just quickly,
sure.
under the social emotional, you have Wellness Day?
Yes.
And I know that's coming up,
Yep.
so when, just again, that's coming up?
So Wellness Day. Sorry. Good Siri's paying attention. Yeah, Wellness Day is next week. It's on the 11th. which is a Wednesday, and this is the second year we've done it. We stopped the academic schedule for the day, and we have 4 different sessions for students to choose from, and we also have a staff wellness center this year as well. So there's 4 different periods of the day. Students can self-schedule. There's one keynote. It's about mindfulness and social emotional well-being, and then the 3 other sections students can self-schedule. And so there's a variety of different topics that they can choose from. And then teachers are responsible to be active in 3 of them. And the 4th one, they're free to either visit sessions or almost like a health fair we have set up. We have the massage chairs coming in for them. So last year it was specifically about student wellness, but this year we've incorporated student and staff wellness. We have Stoked Pizza coming in to serve food truck. They've donated it. They're coming in to serve lunch. So it was a really successful day last year. I think students and staff both enjoyed the break from the regular routine, the ability to access content, and we had things, people were planting seeds, people were learning how to play the guitar. There was just a whole host of things that teachers really were passionate about, but doesn't fit into their regular curriculums that they were able to offer to kids. So it's a really great day, and I don't know, is Matt here presenting tonight his budget or no? I saw him on there, but.
No.
So I'll give a shout out to Matt Jackling, has spearheaded the efforts. He's taken on all the logistical, the schedule, kind of putting all the pieces together. He's done an excellent job facilitating the whole day.
And then I think as a result of the success last year, the middle school started their day. They had it a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
So
I think they called it something a little more fancy than we did, but
Yeah.
they did something very similar.
So it's
Yeah.
it's expanding. So
Yeah, it's great.
just wanted to highlight that.
Yep. And then the last one, culture and relationships, collaboration and communication, which are always really important. Maintaining common planning time for teachers, which we've done the last several years, and we intend to keep that for them next year. Create faculty professional learning groups, which we've incorporated the last couple of years for our faculty meetings. Establish and strengthen relationships with local business and other partners. Maintain effective communication with the community, and support collegiality and positive relationships. Under cultural competence, maintain and strengthen traditions at the high school, to engage students in learning about others' differences and build understanding and empathy. Support a variety of student clubs and activities, which the committee continually supports a no-fee program, which is just, in this day and age, amazing around the state. I think we're one of very few, I don't even know how many there are, but the fact that our students don't have to pay for extracurricular experiences really drives more and more kids into being able to participate, which is just fantastic. And so those are the main ones under the collaboration and communication.
Okay, so do folks have questions? Mrs. Rousseau?
First, I want to say thank you. I have enjoyed seeing this plan develop over the years from when you first brought it to us. It's become more defined, and it's become, I can look at it now and really see the categories and how each area within the category relates back to it without being too narrowed. So I really like the way this has developed over the years for the different schools. It gives some continuity, but allows each school to really show who they are and focus on what they need and are thriving with. So I do have one question. I know you've explained it, but it's new, so it's probably going to take a couple times for me to understand it. When I see Flex Block moving forward, I
Yeah.
keep thinking study hall. Can you just remind me how it's different?
Sure. So the flex is a defined period of time on Tuesdays and Thursdays in the new schedule. It's 30 minutes per day, and the students have the opportunity to schedule where they're going to be. And so it's for 2 primary activities, which is enrichment and extra support. So students that are in good standing, who may not need to go see a teacher for academic purposes, will have the opportunity to sign into a directed study, which they already have the opportunity to do, or they can sign up to do enrichment activities, which, similar to the Wellness Day, teachers will offer different enrichment activities at different times. So if it was drawing and painting, or if it was some sort of fitness-related activity, those aren't all defined yet, but teachers will have the opportunity to propose different enrichment activities, and students will be able to sign up for those. Teachers and administration have the right to override all student signups. So if I have Mrs. Russo in my math class, I can say, you're coming to see me for extra help. And so they always have the authority to do that. So extra support comes first. So those are the two primary reasons for it. You know, if you have to make up a test, if you missed class the day before, I think it's going to give kids the opportunity during the school day, some structure time, and it's a break in the day on those 2 days for them to be able to access extra supports or just 30 minutes of quiet time to get some work done.
Thank you.
Any other questions from you? Okay, any questions? Yes, Mrs. Monaco?
I'm curious as to how much time is spent on the intern program.
Time in what regard? Like how long is the actual internship, or how much planning goes into it?
Neither. How much time does a student spend doing that as opposed to being in classes?
So it's like the last 6 weeks of the fourth quarter.
And how much of the week?
So it's full-time, so they go out 5 days a week. If students have AP classes or other responsibilities at the school, they have to come up with a schedule where they can still come back, and we have a lot of kids that do that.
Come back when? Before school, after
No, they come
school?
back and attend their regular classes, so they know the class is at 11 o'clock, so they have to
Okay.
work out their schedule, so they return to the school. We have a lot of kids who are doing independent study work, so with the help desk or with Ms. Tyrell, our computer science teacher, they do independent learning projects for their internship, who actually stay in the school and do that work and attend all their classes. So each internship is different. They have to submit a proposal for it. There's a committee of teachers and administration that look at the proposals.
So roughly how many actually leave the building and go somewhere else?
Well, we have 43 not doing the internship at all, staying back and attending their classes.
Out of how many?
Well, we have 240 seniors or so.
About 200 have internships.
Right, and then I don't have that information right in front of me of how many are doing an internship in the school, like an independent study or
Yeah, do you have a
independent.
rough idea? Is it 50/50?
Maybe another, I would say maybe another 50 students that do that. And then we
Okay.
probably have over 100 that go out and do internships of
Outside.
fields that they're interested in, right? Like
Okay.
Officer Fournier, I think last year had a dozen.
And do they only do that if they want to?
Correct, it's not
There's
mandatory.
no pressure put on kids to do an internship?
I don't know about peer pressure, but there's no pressure from administration if they choose not to participate. I think there's an encouragement to explore the opportunity, but we don't begrudge students for not wanting to participate. Like I said, we have 43 that aren't doing it at all.
Right,
Ms.
thank you.
Monaco?
And this year, we're actually going to try something new, because the classes get a lot smaller, so we're going to look at identifying by period the senior teachers that have the kids. So if you all of a sudden have a class with 4 kids in it now,
Yeah.
we're going to see if we can combine maybe math, English, and science to make it a class of 12. And it's a good opportunity for us to start looking at some interdisciplinary work that we can do, which we've talked about for a long time, but it's hard to schedule at the high school. I'm not sure that's going to take off or not, but it is something we're going to experiment to see if we can help that experience for those kids who don't
Are
participate.
there some students that just for 6 weeks don't come to the school at all?
Very few. They tend to like being there, believe it or not. So they come back for different reasons. You know, a lot of them are spring athletes, so they'll come back for practices. They might come back because they're still involved in student government or the chess club, or they do one of our extracurricular activities. Some kids still are responsible for doing some work that might be still working out their senior English paper, and they have to come back to meet with their English teacher. You know, I don't have an exact science on that, but
Yeah, I get it.
I'm sure there's a couple that say goodbye and they'll see you at graduation, but I feel like they're still coming in and out.
Yeah, I would think they'd be missing a lot senior year at the end of the year. but-
Yeah. They still attend all the senior events and all the activities, and
Okay, thank you.
I just wanted to point out, through the chair, Ms. Monaco, is one of the, I think one of the additions to the internship program that really caused it to expand was Ms. Terrell, as part of her computer science and her innovative pathways work, We were having trouble getting internships in some of the technology companies in our area, first of all, because they don't take a lot of high school students, and second, because many of them are secure locations. So she created a flipped internship. right?
Reverse internship, yeah. We had a whole bunch of MITRE engineers that came back and worked with a group of kids last year, which was great.
And then we have Oracle now as
Yep.
well, and then there's an Amazon engineer, sort of an early engineering program that we're participating in. So a lot of those kids are having flexible learning experiences, project-based learning experiences this last 6 weeks, and then working with professionals in some of the secure, sort of high-end engineering companies, computer science-based companies that are located near us. So I think that really, we have probably 40 or 50 students participating in the flipped internship. So it's just a great opportunity.
And for people who are listening and may not be aware, it did get mentioned, but what we're talking about is an internship just for seniors.
Correct.
So we're talking about the last 6 weeks of their senior year, in case somebody who's listening tonight didn't understand that part.
Yeah, and we try to, the whole year, get them to start thinking about it. So we have the Career Speaker Series, where we have professionals come into the school and speak to kids, and they can sign up for areas of interest to them. We have a job shadow day where they can go out and shadow a professional, and it culminates with the internship experience. So we try to get them to think about what they want to do. We reject a lot of proposals. There's some back and forth with some kids about tightening it up and making it an appropriate internship experience.
And I think of their 13-year school career, those last 6 weeks senior year are just where their focus is most on the classroom, is what I would have to say.
Yeah.
Very funny.
All right.
It's
Are there
been, it's
other?
been beneficial mutually in that regard, yes.
Yes, Mr. Nelson.
Just a quick comment. I really like the fact that we're focusing on, postgraduate experiences and postgraduate offerings and trainings. I like the dual enrollment program. I've always been a big supporter of that. And I think the internships, as Dr. Conti just alluded to, it's a great way to spend the last 6 weeks of your high school career, because you've got all these other things going on that could be major distractions anyway. You've completed most of your, if not all of your requirements. And an internship is a great opportunity to give high school seniors exposure to something that they might love, or they might say, "Gee, I don't really like it that much." And a lot of times when students graduate and they attend college, some schools, the first couple of years, they don't even let you declare a major. They want you to explore and try different things and look at different subjects. So I think the internship idea is an excellent idea, and the whole plan, I think, is well thought out. But I like the focus on looking at postgraduate experiences and training. So thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Murphy?
Just real quickly, to follow up on that, you were mentioning some of the classes get low, and you were looking into possibly the
Right,
co-curriculum
combining them,
type of
yeah.
which I just want to put in a vote for that. I had a couple of those types of classes back in the day, and I just thought they were very valuable, very interesting. You tended to get, kids who might be not good in English so much, but like the math or vice versa. And if you get into a co-curricular situation, I think it kind of
We don't want to disregard the kids that don't want to participate. And if you're one of 2 kids in a class, all of a sudden,
Right.
I'm not sure that's the most meaningful experience, and it's difficult for the teacher to maintain that. So again, it's just an opportunity to look to see if we can
Yeah,
come
I
up with
know,
some different ideas.
logistically,
Yeah.
you might not be able to do it, but I
Yeah.
think it's definitely worth looking into.
Other comments? I also, I mean, I think I would repeat a little of what Ms. Russo said, that I think over the years, it's becoming more defined, I guess, and I was looking through it just this afternoon, and there's a number of initiatives that I think you've sort of started before, but I'm really encouraged to see that there's a focus on teacher coaching and professional learning communities, which has been shown to be very helpful in improving instruction. We talk sometimes about teacher evaluations, but that actual peer-to-peer coaching and community collaboration can really help instruction, and I'm glad that that's a focus for you folks. The ongoing evaluation of the new schedule, as we know, it hasn't started yet, but it will need to be evaluated going forward, so I'm glad that's in there. I do notice that you've got the the Burlington Public Schools DCAP, which is the District
Curriculum
Curriculum
Accommodation Plan.
Accommodations Program, which is supposed to provide accommodations for any student, whether or not they're on a special education IEP. And as someone who's worked in a number of different school districts and high schools, it's often something that teachers don't know about, that teachers don't use, and there are often students, I think, who could benefit. So I mean, I think sometimes we talk about the students who need a lot of additional support, whether it's special education or not. We sometimes talk a lot about kids who are AP students and high achieving and highly motivated, and we don't want to lose the kids in the middle. And sometimes the kids in the middle might just need one of those accommodations. And I think it's really important to focus on that with the staff, because if the staff don't know about it, then they can't be providing it, and to encourage them to provide those kind of accommodations. So I'm really glad that that's a focus. I'm glad to see that we're going to continue, trying to do the professional development on the anti-bias curriculum and developing relationships. And I think all of that combines a lot of the conversations we've had here regarding students who are in special ed, who don't feel included, as well as students who may have a different cultural background, who may not feel included. And I think it covers all of that. And I'm really glad that it's getting integrated that way. I also noted, I am glad that you're looking to start researching and looking into homework, because again, there's some more current research on homework, and it's what I've learned about it, it's much clearer at the elementary level, and it's not as clear at the high school level.
Yeah.
But I think that's a really important thing, because we don't want to be giving kids make work. In high school, we want to give them valuable work if it is going to be homework. So I'm glad that's a topic for the staff and all of you to be looking at. And of course, working on the portrait of a graduate is helpful, working on all of those instructional things that we want to improve. So I'm really pleased to see, those are the highlights of what I noticed when I was looking through it, just to review. So thank you for, I'm sure there were a lot of people who put time into this, and it also really does align with the district plan for success, which is the way it's supposed to work.
Right.
We have a district plan for success for people who don't know it, and then each building has a plan for success. And so it's good that those are all aligned, because then our district is moving together in the same direction. So this was first reading. So are we going to vote at it at the next meeting? Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. So thank you for your time on that.
I think I'm next on the agenda, too.
And I think I was going to say, I think you are next on the agenda, because we're going to move now into our conversations around the draft budgets. So,
If you want to take Robin and John out of order, I'm happy to let them.
okay, I'm willing to do that. Or is that okay with everyone? Okay. So if we could bring up, I guess, Robin, if you would come on up. This topic is, for those of you who do have a list of our budget topics, it's number 8, Student Information Office. And if you could, I forget your last name.
Miliano, Robin Miliano,
Robin Miliano, our Student Information
data manager.
Data Manager. Thank you.
Okay, well, Robin, thanks for introducing yourself. I'm sorry, I was distracted for a minute trying to answer a question. And so just before we get started and we get too far away, actually, we'll wait for Mr. Nelson to get back, because he has the questions. We do have an answer. Robin does an outstanding job with our state reporting and our federal reporting, never mind our communication with parents and report cards, and just a tremendous amount. Things have changed. Even in the decade or so, we've sort of changed to a new student information system. The amount of reporting and information that we keep track of is significant, and Robin does all of that. So, Robin, I just wanted to express some gratitude. Thank you very much. Your office works incredibly hard.
Thank you.
They're here all summer with all of the move-ins that happen. Robin is oftentimes the first school person that all of our new families meet when they come into the district, and I don't think they could meet someone who is more knowledgeable about Burlington and represents the district better. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Did you want me to wait for Mr. Nelson, or should I?
You can just
go
go
ahead. All right, so my budget is, we had level funding this year.
I'm actually giving back a little bit of money this year. But basically, the student information budget consists of everything that is related to our student information system, which we use Aspen. So it's the annual renewal for our Aspen system, for the training site for Aspen, anything that has to do with professional development with Aspen, we pay for that out of our budget. So pretty much anything that is that student information system related. Additionally, we put some money aside in budget for having some customizations that help us with our reporting. We actually rolled out 2 pretty big implementations this year using virtual pastimes, which we are doing some work with Susan Stone with the RTI project, and with Patrick and the ELL program, and getting more data into Aspen and more reporting out of Aspen. So we're going to continue to work with virtual pastimes to do that type of reporting and getting information in and out of Aspen. So basically, my budget is that. You know, we do have some money set aside for basic office supplies, equipment. We do like to upgrade our. There are 3 people in my office, so we like to upgrade our equipment in sort of a cycle of every 3 years, and so we just put some money aside for that as well. And that is, I have a very small, very quick budget. So
I want to thank you also for taking good care of all that information that's so crucial to running the district and helping our families, so thank you for that. Are there comments or questions? Yes, Mrs. Monaco.
I just want to say thank you for doing such a great job.
Well, thanks, Chris. Thank you.
Other questions? Mr. Eiler.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Hi. I just had a quick question. I'm curious, what is the school messenger system?
So the school messenger system is like our reverse 911 system.
I can do a model if you'd like.
Eric's got it down pat.
Good morning, this is Eric Conti, Superintendent of Schools. There will be no school today. No, there will be school tomorrow, sorry.
Don't tease them.
So it's exactly that. So when we have in the no school, or when the principals or any of the administrators want to get information out to the parents, we use the school messenger system.
And that needs to be separate from the town reverse
does,
system?
yes, yep.
They couldn't be merged together somehow? Or?
I'm not sure that I'm not exactly even sure what the town uses for their software, but this is just something that we have been using for the past, 6 years, Eric, I think.
Yeah, and it allows us to customize, so you can do one school, one group of parents, all schools. I'm not sure the granularity of the E911 system. Again, I'm not against having one system, but it would have to be something that we could customize and do broadcast calls, which is mostly what I do. But Joe, you do a lot with college nights and for a particular targeted audience, and so we, again, if it could work, Mr. Eiler, we look into it. Go ahead, you want to?
Great, and that was a great impersonation of yourself, by the way.
So John, I just want to add, in the past, probably 5-6 years ago, we actually did use the same system, but there was a lot of overlap as far as the way the groups worked, and it became more confusing than actually making it more granular to use. And we didn't really save any money on it, just because if you want the 911 features versus just some of like the convenience features, you pay differently. So if it was a cost savings analysis, it didn't help us, but the convenience didn't help us. We are using 2 separate companies, town and school, just again, because of the features that we need versus what we use for the emergency systems on the town.
Sure, thanks.
And we also, we integrated with our student information system as well, so that nightly there is a feed that goes to School Messenger, so that it is updated, every night, so that when we get our new students or withdrawals, they're not getting the calls that they don't need to get. So.
Okay.
Not sure who would want to get my
Yeah.
At 5:30 in the morning.
All right. Are there any other questions on our student information part of the budget? Okay. did you want to add something, Dr. Conti?
I did. We have an answer to Mr. Nelson's question from a little
Okay.
while ago.
So thank you very much
Thank
for
you.
coming, and
Yes,
thanks
thank
for
you.
presenting. Thank you.
And again, I just can't stress enough the importance of the information that Robin provides, all the enrollment information, the kindergarten projections. Again, Robin is attending all of the kindergarten registration nights, so again, many families' first interaction with the district is with the Student Information Office. So the Chapter 70 for fiscal '21,
So the preliminary for it, based on the governor's budget that's still in the House, is 7.1 million.
7.1?
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. So the next one, I believe Mr. Middleton and Mr. Bucksbaum are here for the music department. Thank you. So if you have this topic, it's number 5. We're going to cover look at the music budget. Oh, and we have a presentation.
I have a slide, if it would be helpful, just to help
I think-
summarize.
Okay, great.
HDMI. Oh, okay. Thanks.
John, you want to start?
All right.
And maybe talk about the year, and we'll get your slide up as soon as you can.
Sure, thank you for having me here tonight. Thank you, Bob. Most of the school committee has had children go through the Burlington music programs here, so you know the history, you know the kind of the evolution of, and you also know that it's not the same as it used to be. So we're very proud of some of our programs that are developing and growing and thriving, and some of the programs are still in the younger phases, and they're still developing. So, tonight we were asked to present a level budget increase, 0 increase. Unfortunately, looking at our programs, I have to advocate for some increases because of the growing program. So I did put a slide together just to summarize and explain, bring to life some of the requests, because numbers don't tell the story. So it's nice to be able to bring some things to life. And I invited Mr. Sean Bucksbaum here, who is our director of bands at the high school level, and he can help explain some of the programs that have grown over the years. So I figured rather than getting lost in what page we're on, I figured I'd just put it all here. This is just, again, summary of highlights of some of the increases that we're facing. The first one is the middle school contracted services. And the detail, I don't know what page numbers you have, but the detail is listed. Basically, it comes down to providing a middle school musical. This is an idea that the principal, Carrie Purchase, suggested. And I know there's been a number of parents who've requested a middle school musical in the past, and it's, I think that this would be what it would cost. I put the numbers down on the details, as I mentioned. So it comes to just, this is $7,900. It does not include the stipends. So that's another process that would have to go through the first year, second year, third year, through the teacher's contract. There's a process in place to begin to add additional stipends for that. The coffee house is something at the high school. Mrs. Julie Weller, she's in our fifth year, and she started these presentations, and there have been about 3 of them, usually 3 of them a year, and they roughly cost about $300 per event, and they're in the high school cafeteria. They become quite a beloved evening for parents and students. It's an informal concert. We bring down a little stage and a little curtain and a little special lighting and some microphones, and it's a more intimate setting where she provides refreshments and popcorn and some coffee, and so up until now, the boosters has been providing the funding for that, the music boosters. And part of the reason, some of these increases, is the justification here tonight, is that the music boosters has been burdened. As our programs are growing, sometimes a little bit faster than our operating budget can keep up with, the music boosters have been great in providing a vital role to kind of bridge that gap, which is, again, it's a wonderful thing and we're very grateful, but it does create a burden on the music boosters, whose only source of funding is fundraising. So they have to go out to the community and have fundraising events. So it becomes a little bit of a burden. So I want to make sure that the operating budget can kind of keep up and take away some of that burden. So for instance, the coffee house, they were struggling to make some cuts in their operating, in the music booster budget, but I think it's a beloved event, and Mr. Sullivan can talk to you about it, Mrs. Deacon. A lot of the teachers can come and see their students perform. Anyway, it's a very inexpensive thing for $300 a night. Put that in there. Guest clinicians, and this is something Mr. Bucksbaum can speak to. Having a guest clinician come in and work with your students really helps prepare them for competitions when they go to be evaluated by adjudicators. I've seen it work in a reverse situation where students have never had an outside person come in, never give them feedback, and they can get pretty nervous and shaken up when they receive that criticism for the first time. So this is a way to really help bridge that. I don't know if you want to speak or add to that, the benefits. We've had some professors and some different professionals come in.
Sure. Mrs. Weller and I have been doing a lot in the last few years with this. One of the unique things I've been doing actually has been using Skype technology to bring people in from around the country. Mm-hmm. So even just last week, we Skyped in a retired band director from Texas who was able to work with students on a piece that she helped premiere. Mm-hmm. So it was really valuable to get that feedback where if we had flown her up and paid her hotel and, that would have been thousands of dollars. But, for $100 and a Skype call, we were able to bring her in and students were able to have that experience. Like Mr. Middleton said, we've been collaborating with, university professors. We've had people in from Berkeley over the last few weeks, which has been really great. And it's definitely something that as it continues to grow, it would be great to have the resources to be able to continue to bring in people to work with students that are not necessarily just their, me during the school day.
Again, right now there's $500 in the budget, so this increase is $500 more, so we can provide that. Right now, we've been bringing in clinicians with the help of the boosters and outside fundraising, so this would be a way for the operating budget to support that. Moving on to the next line here is the musical at the high school, and this is just sort of realignments of some things as we evolve. For instance, we've been participating in the Massachusetts Educational Theater Guild competition, so there's a $500 registration fee that wasn't in our budget in the past. There's projections and animations which are used currently, which hasn't been something that we've been able to do in the past. It helps eliminate the cost of building lots of scenery, so these are just adjustments. Costumes, some shows we can get away with less costumes, like Mamma Mia, where it's modern dress. Sometimes it costs more if you're doing more elaborate shows. The police detail, again, the contract increases as their fees go up. The custodians, we had to add a custodian due to increase of attendance sometimes. The orchestra members, we added an increase professional. We also started using student orchestra members. And this is a way I put a line item in here to compensate them a little bit. So in other words, I think it's a nice kind of pat on the back. Mr. Bucksbaum was in our orchestra pit for this past production, and alongside of him was a trombone student of his, and there was a trumpet student. We actually had 4 students in the pit, and it was great to have them mentored in a way by the professionals, and we had our retired band director, Matt Lovell, was there. So it was a great way to kind of bridge the generations and give them a wonderful experience, and I like to be able to give them $75 and for a nice little pat on the back, thank you item. So the drama production is actually a decrease because now the drama has entered into a competitive format, and so they just competed actually this past Saturday at Andover High School, and they won 2 recognitions, one for one of the best chorus ensembles award and one for best costume award. We're very proud of Mr. Cade Hill, who put together a great production. But in doing that, it's a more of a condensed one-act version of a production. It only performs one evening here at the high school and then goes on to the competition where they travel. It has to be a smaller set because it has to be able to be packed up and put in a truck and quickly assembled. So it's actually a decrease of there. Moving on to the NESBA competitions, and Mr. B can talk about this. The NESBA stands for New England Schools Band Association, and in the past we've had the marching band competing. This year we're adding an additional competition. Also, not to be confused with the Winter Guard and Winter Percussion, they also have NESBA competition fees. And then the MICA is in another festival that we've been competing with, and that includes the chorus and the band. And also, we'd like to have the money there so that our new string orchestra could compete as well. Additional toner cartridge to help keep things moving. The middle school supplies. So this year's schedule at the middle school, there's now an additional general music classroom over there because of the way the schedule works. So we had to create some more supplies, obviously, for them. This is just sort of maintaining that classroom. BHS supplies, again, we're sort of realigning some things, the adding of the string orchestra, concert attire. The chorus uniforms has been paid for by the Music Boosters in the last several years. They've been able to provide, tuxedos or concert dresses for the students, and so I think that's something that we should be covering here in the operating budget. Other than that, there's some string supplies. Dr. Conti can tell you what the rock stop is, I'm sure. He remembers fondly. That's from the cello days, yes. And then finally, the last item here is for the middle school, increasing the performing ensembles due to schedule changes. That's the textbook. So what textbooks equates to in the music department is to purchase the written sheet music and scores for the students to use in concert. So now instead of one chorus, there's now a 6th grade chorus, a 7th grade chorus, an 8th grade chorus. Instead of one or 2 bands, there's now 3 bands. So, and then 3 string groups, so 6th grade string ensemble, 7th and 8th grade. So that's about it in a nutshell. I know I went quickly. The details are spelled out here that I'm happy to answer questions.
Madam Chair, can I just
Yes,
ask a couple questions? John, any new positions or percentage of positions or FTEs?
No, we don't anticipate any increase or decrease in FTE.
And is there a total?
Yeah, it total is 19,230 increase.
Over last year?
Correct. There's a number of decreases that I didn't highlight on here, but I'm happy to include those.
Now's your time to present what you needed. So you did exactly what you were
Good.
requested of doing, and I thank you, and it's good for us to hear. So again, people have other questions.
All
I
right.
just wanted to ask about staffing.
All right, Mrs. Russo?
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's been nice to see the program growing, but as programs grow, so the costs. So this probably is more for Nicole. So does the music have a revolving fund like athletics?
Yes.
And so in looking at the athletics budget this weekend, do we treat the music revolving and the athletic revolving similar in terms of what each one's used for? So if there's equipment, athletics that's being paid for revolving, how do these two compare? Can we be consistent with them, or are they just two different animals?
Sure. So, yes, it runs similar to
Okay.
athletics. If you recall, a few years ago, basically what we did is we took the equipment that was previously budgeted for and operating, and so we're purchasing the equipment and repairs out of revolving, and then we put in 50,000 for the musical and the play into the
Okay.
operating budget, so we sort of swapped those two.
Okay, all right, so we are using the revolving fund similar, okay. And then you mentioned the police contract increase. Is that similar in the athletics? Because I know they use a lot of police details too. Or is that?
So, yeah, anything that contractual that was settled for police, they'd be billing out the same rates for any department that's
Okay.
using the detail.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
All right. Yes, Mr. Nelson?
Good evening, John.
Good evening.
Mr. Buckbaum. Just, John, overall, you said it went up, the budget went up like 19,000. What's the overall percentage over last year?
This is a 21% increase according to the spreadsheets.
Okay, because I was on page 99. I wasn't sure if that 21% was everything or if it was just balanced out by some of the other pages. So, okay, and one of the big driving forces is the middle school musical.
Right.
And then the high school music supplies. Can you tell us a little bit about the reason for the increase from 13,000 to 20,000?
Yep, let me pull that page here. You said high school supplies, was it?
Yes.
Okay, so we kind of reorganized this a little bit so it's more descriptive of, and more detailed. So instrumental accessories, drum heads, sticks, mallets, lyres, flip folders, these are marching band materials primarily, 1,500. BHS Winter Guard equipment, silk flags, rifles, sabers, $1,000. The BHS Fall Guard equipment, silk flags, 2,500. So as you may know, we have a Winter Guard, which is a competitive group now, and that we didn't have in the past. And again, the Music Boosters has been helping to provide some of these gaps. More and more the competitive groups change the colors and the flags per the design of the show, and Mr. B can talk more about that. Props for marching band show, again, Mr. Bucksbaum's had to beg, borrow, and steal in the past. I thought it would be nice to have that the money put in here. String uniforms, as I mentioned. Music stands, I mentioned some of these already.
Yeah, and just from my perspective, it looks as though there, as Mr. Middleton said, there's some reorganization of this from the previous year, meaning that a lot of the items might be different, but the finances are similar. I think it looks like where the biggest increases are coming from High School Music Supplies would be for the string orchestra. That's a program that's right now in the 9th grade and developing, up through the high school. So that is, it looks like on here, the thing that has the most increase is just simply because that program has just now reached the high school and needs, there currently is no budget at all for the orchestra program. So that's where the major increase is coming from, as well as the chorus uniforms, which, as John said, is an idea that's to move that over from an obligation for the boosters to something that's included in the budget.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have.
Okay. Other questions? I did protocol. Shall I call on Ways and Means first? Mr. Eiler? Oh, okay. So, Mr. Middleton, so I know there was a big shift in the music program at the middle school, and I know there's a big shift with the string program coming to the high school. And I'm just interested in knowing, a few of the things you mentioned and pointed out were increases at the middle school for these new 3 choruses and 3 orchestras and things like that. How many is this budget the second year of those things to build them in, or is it the third year? And do you see that going on? Are these as things that we would be doing every year, adding to the operating budget, or after, say, I'm thinking middle school 3 years, after a 3-year start in, that's not the right word, but build up, would it then be stuff that we would just have some replacements and we wouldn't need all that stuff? So can you tell us a little about the timing on that and such?
Certainly. The principal, Carrie Purchase, and I met with our music teachers at the middle school last year, extensively went over details of what their needs would be over the summer to prepare for this new schedule. And fortunately, we were able to cover a lot of that cost through the revolving account and the equipment from that account, which doesn't show up here on the operating budget.
Right.
So I think there was about $8,000 there that was purchased for over the summer for some new chairs and some new instruments. The iRig keyboard lab, the ukuleles, another set of guitars, and the carts to store them on, another cabinet to store equipment. So I think that was a one-time purchase. Now, Mr. Kuna can talk to you about an upcoming warrant article that we're looking at for the middle school, which we're looking to make, because the stage is used more and more as a teaching space. So we're looking to increase the lighting in there. We're in a lot of improvements for safety, and some of the curtains are old and things, so just kind of put up some screens, a whiteboard, a projector on the back wall, so it really can be a fully functional teaching space. So but that's sort of again, that doesn't show up here in the
Right.
operating budget. But to answer your question, I think funding increases at the middle school after the musical edition. I think it's level. I don't see any increases at the middle school in the
Okay.
future.
Okay. And this same thing for the string orchestra, maybe if this is the second year of the string, would it need another 2 more years to kind of, as the students get to the 12th grade?
I think for the strings right now, we have a teacher in place. Mrs. Weller's actually directing the string ensemble. So in a string program that's developing, the students really rent their own instruments unless it's like a double bass, or there's some exceptions to that. It's hard to bring a double bass back and forth on the bus, so they keep one at the school. So we're carefully looking at the numbers of upcoming string players in the 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, and trying to make sure we have the space available, the room available.
Are there 6th, 7th, and 8th graders who are tall enough to play a double bass?
You know what? It's actually, they make quarter size, half size, and
Oh,
3/4 size
okay.
basses. I understand that we even have some 3rd graders who can start on a
Ooh.
quarter size bass, which looks like a small cello.
Yeah.
But,
Okay.
yeah, they don't do that with tubas, but they do do that with string instruments.
Okay.
But right now, there's 24 6th graders who play strings, and with the new schedule, we expect that number to maintain. So that eventually, there would be about 75 middle school string players, 6, 7, and 8. And then if we bring them if they stay with it at the high school, it could be 100 string players at the high school. Of course, there's always attrition, natural attrition, but one of the things that Mr. Kuhn and I, we've been having conversations, and Mr. Sullivan, is about getting some new lockers. So right now, we have band lockers that have been there, 30-plus years, that are, red and rusty, but they're still there, and they work, and they're fine. But if we're going to be bringing in string instruments and violins, violas, cellos, and they're going to need a place to store their instruments safely during the day. So that's probably a warrant article coming in the next year or two. But as far as increasing the string operating budget, I think with these new increases in textbooks and supplies, and of course the concert dress uniforms, I think that's gonna cover it.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Eiler?
Thank you. Having had 2 kids in the band and musical program, definitely appreciate all the work that you're doing. They had a great time. While we never want to look at trying to turn a profit on things in schools necessarily, it does ease it a little bit. So I guess the question is, would my understanding from the high school musical is that it's essentially revenue neutral in terms of, the money coming into the revolving account, I believe, is similar to the expenses of the program?
Mr. Eiler, we really shifted that around because
And I know we did.
To Mrs. Russo's question about treating the music department similar to the athletic department, we felt that we needed to budget for the musical and run it out of the high school, and so it's a high school musical, it's a high school program, and it's an important part of our program, so it is budgeted sort of in the operating budget. And so there's a set budget for the musical, and then any money that comes into the revolving account, we're looking to help support instruments, other expensive purchases, sort of one-time purchases. Then the school committee would see those purchases moving forward as well. So we're treating, again, the music department much in a similar way than we've treated the athletic department, where, again, a lot of equipment purchases come out of the athletic revolving account, but the operations of the athletic program come out of the operating budget.
I completely understand your point. but I'll ask the question anyway. I'm just curious, for the middle school musical, is that something that we intend to charge for? Do we have any sense of?
Honestly, I don't really know. I'm not sure I really want to charge for the musical. I want there to be an experience that's appropriate for middle school and have the kids participate. But we would talk about it. And again, access is something that's really important. And we often talk, again, not to expand the conversation, Mark and I even have conversations about not even charging for students to have access to any of our programs, because we want them here. We want them not only participating but also spectating and supporting their peers. So we don't have control over that with the state, with the MIAA, but we locally it's something we discuss. So wouldn't be looking to fund the middle school musical from gate receipts. Just would want that to be part of the
completely agree with
program.
that decision, by the way. I think that was a very good choice. Thank you.
All right. Yes, Ms. Monaco?
I just have one quick thing, mentioning instruments that are too big for the bus. The alto sax that I lug around a lot, that's too big for the bus.
All right.
Okay. Are there other questions or comments on the music budget? I want to thank you for all the wonderful music programs that you both run, and it's really wonderful experiences that our students have, so thank you very much. Okay, and thanks for coming tonight. So, are there other, and are you going to cover all the other departments, Mr. Sullivan? And Mr. Adubato? Okay. Oh, right, we got that too, okay. So we're going to
I
go
always
back
joke
to.
he has the smallest budget in the school, and we drag him out here. I don't know. I
Yeah.
feel bad.
What a good guy.
He's a good sport.
He is. So are we going to start with number twos, or are we going to start with number one? The high school line number 47, or the guidance line number 51?
I'll do the high school.
All right.
So I know, like it's been mentioned, we had a level funded increase, but regretfully, I also did not come in at level funded, particularly in my contracted services, and I highlighted the several that are contributing to pretty much the entire increase. So I'll just note those quickly. I talked about, well, the internship program was talked about here. As that program has grown, there have been some nominal related expenses that have come up as a result of that. So we had a $1,500 request for expenses related to that program. With the new schedule, we mentioned having to schedule the students into that flex period. We researched and looked at a couple different softwares that were available, and we have decided to use a program called MyFlex. And the $4,000 for that is the support and license fees for our students and staff to be able to schedule for the flex period. As you know, the last couple of years, we've had a revamped summer reading program, and I believe the invitation has been extended to everybody in the room to participate, and I'd encourage you to do it next year if you didn't last year. But we have a whole host of books that students can choose from, and they're partnered with an adult who also read the same book, and there's a small discussion when they come back in the fall about the book, and there's little tweaks that are made every year. But again, there are expenses that have come up out of that program, cost of books, different materials that are needed to support that program, so there's a $2,500 request for that. The two large increases are two line items that we've had at the high school for many years, and I think they were lost in different areas that were supported and paid for it, one of which is our Kaplan affiliation fee. It's $10,000, and we pay that so our students have access to reduced cost SAT prep here at the high school. There's a class going on right now in Abby Abbott's room. I believe the cost for our students is $295, $285, where the sticker price on it is $600, $700, $800, something like that. So that $10,000 offsets. It's a school affiliation fee that gives our students reduced cost to that SAT prep.
And Mark, just to
Yes.
stress again, you've covered, this isn't a new expense, you've covered it, it just, some fell out of the budget in some place.
Yeah, I meant to put it in last year. Nicole can maybe better explain. I think it was paid previously out of an assessment budget, and Nicole has asked to put all things that were extraneous paid out of different budgets back to schools, which
That's
makes
fine.
absolute sense.
Right.
So I don't know exactly where it was paid out the last couple of years, but it is something we've done for many, many years.
Many, many years,
Yeah,
right.
right. And the other one is our virtual high school enrollment fee, which is $11,250. Again, not new. It's
12
been
years old.
12 years old, so it's been a long time that we've paid that. Again, that gives us, it's a fee, it gives our students access to take virtual high school classes during the year. It's very popular with our upperclassmen. We've had kids take Irish poetry, screenwriting, so it's a good supplement to our program of studies. It fills it. Portuguese. It fills in voids in the schedule when kids have schedule conflicts. It allows them to take courses that we're just not able to offer because of interest or enrollment. So it has been a very popular and useful program for the high school. So I would advocate for that to continue. But again, not new. It's been paid for many years out of different line items, but it makes complete sense for it to be in the high school contracted services because it is a direct high school expense. I believe everything else came in. There's some fluctuations up and down in some different areas. Any increases, I believe, in the various departments at the school have to do with equipment costs or contracted services for equipment fees or maintenance and things like that. I believe Mrs. Dacey has a nominal increase to support the Seal of Biliteracy program. But again, the vast majority of my requested increase comes from those five items in my contracted services. I did request new staff, which I mentioned previously, a full-time computer science teacher. We're looking to add a tutor position to the English department. So currently, right now, we have 2 general education tutors, and we have a math tutor specific to math tutoring, obviously. The English department is requesting a English language arts tutor that would work specifically with students around reading and writing. So a kid who has a directed study might have a period or two where they go see the tutor for math or a general tutor. And this is something that's available to all kids. You don't have to be on a defined educational plan or a 504 or anything like that. Students who are struggling can access that support. I mentioned when I was here last time, talking about the schedule, I did request 4 stipends to build an advisory program at the high school. That those 4 people would be assigned a grade each. They'd be responsible for developing a curriculum for a new advisory program at the high school. And then I put this in the past, and I know it's a big ask because it would probably fall at a department head level or administrator, but a 6 through 12 curriculum coordinator slash special programs director. As you know, the high school has, we've developed a lot of different specialty programs, whether it's the Career Exploration Committee, the mentoring program. There's a variety of things that we're doing. It would be nice to have one kind of person overseeing that in a paid position. We have really great staff who do a lot of this unpaid, but they put a tremendous amount of time in. So to have someone who could not only be a curriculum coordinator for grades 6 through 12, but also oversee some of our special programs and be the lead point person on some of that would be a nice to have. So those are the positions that I did put in the proposed budget. And then, as I mentioned, Sean couldn't be here. If there were any athletic-related items that you saw on his request, I could do my best to answer some questions on the athletics end of things, too.
Okay, so do people have questions or comments on the high school?
I got a question.
Yes, Mr. Nelson.
Yeah, you mentioned Matt not being here. I'm just looking at one of the summaries here, Mark, and it says Burlington High School teacher, submitted by Matt Jackling. It says, accommodate for losing staff due to cutbacks in the previous year in order to run our freshman health curriculum. So this isn't really a new position, it's a replacement position?
Correct. You want to?
Who's covering that? Who's covering that this year? I mean,
Dr. Conti can.
we moved a middle school physical education teacher to the high school for the year. We had a high school teacher.
Take an ELL position.
What?
Take an ELL
Yeah,
position.
leave the district, and we also had a physical education teacher at the high school who got her license in ELL, was needing to cover ELL. So we just, we kind of made do for a year. We'd like to move the middle school PE teacher back to the middle school, because we're going to have a middle school retirement, we believe. And then we're going to need to backfill that position because we think we need to keep the ELL staffing.
We made the decision, freshman health's not a requirement that we run it. Sophomore and senior health is. So we made the decision to not run freshman health this year.
Gotcha.
Okay.
That's
Other
all I have.
questions or comments? Okay. Okay, Mr. Eiler.
Thank you. First, I'd like to thank you for causing me to learn what a risograph is. So I feel much smarter now.
They're hanging on.
Let me just ask a general question first. Since we have the one-to-one, I'm just curious, there's a lot of line items for textbooks. Have we moved to electronic textbooks at all, or are we still in the
So-
old-fashioned paper world, or?
Both. So we have a hybrid. So I think we have, we've tried to allow for the time and space for teachers to create their own and curate their own materials and build their own online, in Google Docs, their own curation of curriculum. And it's a process. It's a lot of work for teachers. So a lot of the textbook accounts, we would offset supplemental text that already exists. So if we needed to get a classroom set, so it's in the classroom, or if a couple books get lost or damaged, we replace a couple of books. We still have to purchase AP text, which we can't recreate. That's a mandated curriculum that they have, so we have to use their materials.
But those texts aren't available in electronic form, or not any
Right now, I'm not
cheaper?
aware that the AP texts are available electronic, not at least some of the classes that we offer. And then the textbooks, I don't know. What I do know is that the online versions of them are just as expensive as the complete set. So say we wanted to get all new social studies textbooks, we'd still be in the six figures of trying to replace those. So we really have pushed the teacher curated materials and then just supplementing existing text that we already have.
So a little more durable, but not any cheaper, maybe.
Through the
Right.
chair,
Yeah.
Okay.
if I may,
Yes.
just to reiterate, you'll be surprised that the textbook companies didn't change their price point.
Yeah.
They went from giving you traditional textbooks to saying there's an online available, to saying now pushing obviously the electronic versions, but throwing in the hardcover copies as well, because they're not gonna, we're not gonna pay less even though it's only electronic and we don't have, so that the price point never changed when the companies made the transition, which
Okay.
isn't a surprise.
Worth a try. Have a few specific things then, too. The Evening Academy, I'm not entirely sure what that is, but it looks like it's been defunded. Has that gone away, or
No, I think they moved.
or is it called something new now? Or?
No, it's called the Evening Academy. I think we've just placed it in a different point in the budget. So Nicole can tell you sort of where it is.
Oh, is that this line item 18?
Yes.
All right, so that's what used to be in the high school budget?
Yes, it's just been separated out under a different category instead of being included in high school.
I see. Oh, okay. Oh, but it went down by 1,500 in the high school, and line item 18 is 78,000, so I'm missing something here.
Are you looking under the
Or-
high school
Oh, that was
contracted?
just supplies.
That's just
you're
supplies.
saying. Okay, so the one in the high school was just the supply portion of that, okay. So that's been folded into line item 18 then, or?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, that makes sense. Then, let me just see here. And, let's see, just a few specific things. looking at the expenses, let me see if I can find this again here. Okay, yeah, there's one that, let me just find the exact words. Yeah, in the high school principal's office, it has an enigmatic $9,000 item. It says lodging, travel, meal, tour expenses for their visit here and us going there. Where is here and there? That's page 76. It's right above, it's a few lines above.
So that's the student exchange programs. So our Italian and Spanish exchange programs. So there's a variety of related expenses associated with us traveling to Spain and Italy, and
So here and
them
there is
traveling
Italy and Spain.
to us, right? I can make that a little bit more clear, I'm sorry.
Okay, yeah.
I can see how that wouldn't make sense.
A little confusing. Okay, thanks.
What page was that on?
That
From the
was
second page of the
76.
contracted services.
75? Oh, okay.
Well, the PDF, page 76, but, yes, page number 75.
Okay, thank you.
It made sense to us when we wrote it, I'm sure. Yeah.
It always does. And the virtual high school, how does that differ from the online learning programs?
So the VHS is an affiliation fee. We also use Edgenuity and a couple of other programs that we have options available for students. So
Okay.
we have a couple of different companies that we use. But the online Edgenuity is one of the ones we've got to use. That's always been in our contracted services where the other one hasn't.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right, so it is a different program, just wanted to make
Yep.
sure. With the, and let's see, let me see if I can find this one here. I just wanted to make sure that something wasn't put in twice here by accident. There's the, this is on page 75 again. There's a Summer Institute lodging, and it says Adebato 4, and then right below that it has fee lodging for administrators to attend Summer Institute, and the numbers are very similar. Are those, in fact, two different items, or are they the same item?
So the Summer Institute is runs probably the registrations, and one is probably the lodging to
Well,
attend.
they both say lodging, so, all right, how many people are actually going? Is it 4 or 8?
It's available to 4 people if they want to attend. It's the State Administrators Association. It's their annual professional development conference.
Okay, because they both say lodging, I guess is why I'm asking.
Yeah, I can check to see if that's a duplicate or not.
Okay, it's just the fact the amounts are very similar
Yep.
is what,
It could be a duplicate, but one might be the registrations and one might be the lodging expenses.
okay, yeah, if you would
I'll
double check
double-check,
that, please. And, let's see, just a couple more here. On the Kaplan thing, I just want to double check, how many students are in that program roughly?
Varies from year to year. We have probably, they offer usually a course in the summer. They try to offer one in the fall, and then they offer about close to 5 sessions in the spring. And that's probably anywhere between maybe 50 kids,
Okay, so about 50
30 to
students.
50. It fluctuates every year,
Okay.
just a little bit.
The reason I'm asking it, just going from the numbers you mentioned, I think you said it was something like a $600 sticker price, and they're getting a discounted price of $285,
Correct.
which would suggest a crossover point is a little more than 30 students. So if we're not maintaining it above 30 students, we're not necessarily coming out ahead. So we just want to keep track of that, obviously.
Yeah. They've actually kept that amount has been in place for, I want to say, at least, I mean, some of the,
Since at least
you probably
my-
know, at least 20
At
years.
least since
and
my
they haven't
daughter
adjusted
graduated,
that,
yeah.
so.
Okay, I mean, it's fine if we're actually, saving money overall. That's good, but.
I'd always like more students to sign up, but
Yep. And that's certainly a good way to encourage it. And then an easy one here, on page 83, I guess it would be for you. There's a Scantron maintenance item, and it doesn't have any number next to it.
Which department is that?
Social studies?
social studies contracted services. 1823026, if that helps.
So my hope would be that he's getting rid of it, but I don't know. I'd have to get clarification on that.
I just wanted to make sure it wasn't
Yeah,
a
I know
forgotten item.
I'm going to draw a blank on the name. Grade Cam, we were experimenting with a web-based version of Scantron this year with the English department, and it was open to all departments in the spring to play around with, so he may have, Mr. Witten may have played with that and said this is better than Scantron, so that could be the reason why he took the money out, but
Could imagine that easily went away to mimeograph
yeah,
also.
yeah, that's true. I'll double check on that though.
Okay, great. Let's see here. And that's everything. Thank you.
Are there other questions or comments? There is one other thing that I talked a number of times with Mr. Cuna about, but I have a pet peeve about, I don't have any objection to having teachers have access to filtered water, but bringing in bottled water does bother me. If there are ways that we could use water sources here and use the Brita filter type things, and I've noticed there's a few $100s for water in different departments. I want them to have it. I just wonder if any of those have a water source in their teacher's room, is there a way to filter it? Or is there a way to get a standard large thing that could, fill at the Brita filter stations and be used in a teacher's room so that we're not shipping water across the city and adding to our carbon footprint that way, but providing filtered water for teachers who feel the need for it. Is that something that you or the department heads could maybe look into?
I'm sure we could look into it. I know, speaking from the main office perspective,
Yeah.
we have a lot of people that come in and out, so having in the central office is, it's nice to have, because the Brit is not always convenient to where we're located. So I don't want to say it's a necessity that we have to have, but in that professional space, it is a nice to have. It's, we do a lot of different things there, meetings, people come
Right.
in for a whole host of things. But we could absolutely look at other options. We do have several Brita stations
Right.
Throughout the school. And I know several departments, and I think it's all over the building, that there's several areas that have them, so we can certainly look at it.
I don't know if you could get one of those big things that people use in the summer for providing lemonade and fill them from the Brita filters, and then it's available in that office or whatever. I'm just trying to be creative.
Sure. Yeah,
And I
can
wanted to
definitely-
put that idea out because maybe there's somebody in your building who's got a better idea than I
Sure.
do and can look at it.
We can definitely
So,
look into that.
I mean, it would save a few $100s if we didn't, but that's not the purpose. It's more, is there a way we can do it that's better for the planet?
Understood.
So,
We'll take a
great.
look at it.
Good, thank you. Other questions on the high school budget? All right. So next, Mr. Adubato, you're up.
Good evening, everyone.
All right.
First, before I get into the budget request for next year, I just wanted to make sure I acknowledge and thank everyone for, I know we don't typically cover salaried items unless it's a new position at a night like this, but the school adjustment position that was added to the high school guidance office has really, really been impactful. I just wanted to, I can't say that enough. I actually brought a little bit of data just so everyone is aware of the impact that we see. But to start, the number of referrals, and just to clarify, the School Adjustment Council was put into the high school counseling office for, specifically to work with students on social emotional issues. We've been talking about it through, Matt Jackley's been mentioning it through the Youth Risk Survey and the Wellness Committee, that there is a greater need for students struggling with any kind of social emotional coping strategies. So this year, our School Adjustment Council has had 110 student referrals. That's between guidance, administrators, faculty, BARC alerts, and for other at-risk meetings. So she was at about 110 total referrals, and 87 students have met with her on a consistent basis. She being the school adjustment counselor, has a process on tiering students, meaning she'll meet with them and she'll make a determination of whether they stay with her, whether just a simple check-in with their regular guidance counselor will work, or make a referral to the Bridge program. And so she's right around 40 students, and when she's meeting with these students either weekly or twice a month. So if you figure there's 7 periods in our school day, 5 days a week, that's 35 periods. So she's got 40 students, and she's doing a great job managing that. So short-term counseling and solution-focused counseling. So I, again, really, really want to thank the school committee and everyone else that's up there for allowing for that position. It's really gone a long way. And the second thing I wanted to mention was our summer application boot camp, summer college application boot camp. We started this past summer. It was approved in the budget last year. It's in the budget again for next year. That was basically a day where the guidance counselors or school counselors were here during the school day, along with Jess Nedishin, one of our English teachers. Everyone took a piece of the college process, a piece of the college application process, and rising seniors were able to come in. They were able to go to a station on standardized testing, essay writing, activity list, college list. So the idea was where close to 3/4 of our senior class apply early. We wanted to give those students the opportunity to get ahead in the summer. So that really has gone a long way, and again, that's in the budget again for next year. And then the remaining part of my budget, really supplies are staying as is. Contracted services, there's a $2,000 increase, and that's for Aspen training. Now that the master's schedule is part of the counseling office at the high school, there's a training component, and it's not the type of training you get it once and you're good for 5 years. Aspen is evolving, their program evolves, so we need to make sure we are staying up to speed on the program, and our new high school schedule, as you all know, is also adjusting, so I think the training is really needed as well. So there's an increase in the counseling contracted services due to that. And then equipment, some technology equipment that we have in there, dual screen monitor, guidance office supplies, the counseling staff, they each have their own office. From year to year, there'll be different requests for a variety of things, things that are short money, but they're using their own money to pay for it. An example would be like a stress ball, believe it or not, little things like that. That's why I have a very small amount budgeted for each counselor for those things. And then the last thing that we have in our budget, we're also responsible for AP testing at the school. And we've been pretty steady, with about 240 kids taking around, let's see, I wrote it down, about 460 exams. And so those students all have to take a test that's highly, highly regulated, and they're very specific on where students seat, distance away from each other. And so this year we did have a surge. We have about 273 students that are going to be taking 553 tests, so we've had an increase. In the past, we would use, which is now Area 1, 2, 3 for the testing, and we'd also use the science lecture hall. It's getting more and more challenging to do that, to adhere to the regulations for AP testing. So talking to surrounding communities that manage AP, I know Belmont High School, they actually purchased desks for students, but I looked at the option of purchasing tables. Tables have to be either 8 or 13 feet. An 8-foot table can seat one student. So just to clarify, I'm talking about a test that really happens in 2 weeks of the school year, that's it. But if we do purchase tables, they could be used for other reasons, not just AP. We would house them in our office and control them, but we obviously would be willing to share them. But just that 2-week time frame, the table, again, either an 8-foot or a 13-foot table, and we have an increase in equipment because I'd like to purchase tables for AP testing. My thought is to, and I've talked to Mr. Hart about this, to use the rubber gym potentially for AP testing, and have students seated in tables, set apart in the appropriate way. They're set away from the school building itself, and I think it would be a much more controlled testing environment. So again, that's why you see an increase with the tables. Besides that, I'm willing to answer any questions. Again, overall, it's $4,369 increase. But some things, tried to maintain level funding where I could, but there is a slight increase.
All right. Do people have any questions for Mr. Adubato? Yes, Ms. Russo?
The dual monitor for Joe, is
Yep.
this what we spoke about? Are we cloning you? What's happening?
Uh,
I can't.
Dual screen monitor, so it's a desktop
Okay.
station, and I got the price from Jose and Fadine. So, again, managing the master schedule with some of those tasks, a dual screen, I think, would make it a much more efficient process.
We're hoping to get twice the amount of work out of him.
That's
Yeah,
what
right.
I was hoping. Thank you.
All right. Mr. Eiler?
Mr. Russo took the words out of my mouth. I guess I would just suggest on the monitor, may want to have Jose sharpen his pencil a little bit on that. I just did a quick look at Micro Center, and I went for a high-end dual HD 48-inch monitor, and it was only $800. So I'd like to know.
Okay.
I'd like to know what kind of monitor you're getting.
Yeah, again, they gave me the price point.
Right.
So
Yeah,
just
I
want-
understand. It's just for you.
I didn't even
Ask
look
him to
at-
double check that
I
because
will.
it's got to be a really nice monitor for that amount of money.
Maybe he's getting one for himself, I don't know.
Yeah.
Good. All right, other questions or comments? Thank you again to both,
Joe, with timing, just because we go through this every year, students are signing up for courses.
Middle school is full swing. They're actually, students are making requests online, and the portal for the 8th graders closes tonight. So all the 8th graders will have enrolled, will have requested courses.
And it's relatively recent that they've been doing signups online, isn't that correct?
Yep, this is the first year.
And you did a lot of training to make that happen, is that correct?
A lot of collaboration. Mrs. Gibbons at the middle school, the counselor there, did a great job jumping right into it. I think she was quite happy because she, in the past, she was the one typing in all the student requests. So she was on board, and, Mrs. Purchase and everyone else at the middle school helped the transition quite a bit. So, and the students, they're already used to Aspen, so it's very simple.
High school?
High school, we're going to open up the portal on Friday, so the students will have about a 1-week window of time to request courses, and high school teachers are in the process of completing recommendations. Once the portal closes on March 13th, then the counseling staff will start to go through to make sure students are meeting graduation requirements. They're signed up for the appropriate courses, they meet the appropriate prereqs. Once that's all done, it should be right around April 1st or so that we should have a real good idea of numbers.
Rough section counts in
Rough
April?
section counts, inclusion counts, still, we might need a little bit longer than that, but for the most part, the overall numbers would be ready in early April.
And Mark, do you have a cutoff in your head about enrollment size? I know it might depend on a new course or an advanced course or something like that, but
Yeah, I think like 12 is typically something under, unless there was a special circumstance. And that 12 would be even an exception at that point, so an AP class that, or a class that runs every year, or every other year or something like that, or something that we're really trying to get off the ground.
other questions, Dr.
yeah.
Conti, you don't look
Joe,
done.
Naviance, how many years have we been with Naviance?
We've been with Navient since 2006, and just so you know, that the counseling staff, we've been looking at other potential companies. Naviance, we think, really has it down with the college application process and the submitting transcripts online, but the self-assessments for career and interest inventories, personality assessments, there's other possible contenders out there, and we're in the process of looking at that now.
Yeah, we talked. I have to get you, I've seen a new product, so just remind me.
Yeah, definitely.
That triggered that for me. But thank you very much. I think you, again, do a lot of collaboration with the middle school. I think that makes the transition much smoother. And section counts, as you all know, are critical for staffing levels and numbers, and we always have to make some adjustments. But we try to tend to do that within the budgets that we have. But if we need sections, we'll know, we'll have a better idea then in mid-April, it sounds like.
Correct.
So just part of the timing, so.
Okay, well, thank you again for all that you do and for presenting tonight, and please thank your staff as well, because we appreciate all that they're doing too. So, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
There's no one else going to present budget tonight, Dr. Conti, is that right? So if we have, there are a couple of categories that we didn't have presented specifically. I'm thinking maybe if I mention them, if people have a question on those areas, we could do it. The areas that are, and I just went through and it looks to me, what we have left that we haven't covered is athletics, art, physical education, health, and the science center. And they all looked like they came in at level funding from last year's budget. So just as a general background. So are there questions, let's just do in order, on the athletics budget from any of the committee members? No. And Mr. Eiler, yes.
Surprisingly,
We
I have a question.
appreciate your attention to detail, thank you.
Shocking. Just want you to know someone's paying attention. Okay. This is a little item, but I'm just asking from a policy point of view. The game tickets, I'm just curious why things that aren't, it seems like that's an expense that's very directly tied to the revenue of the games. Why wouldn't that just be in the revolving account with that?
So Ms. Kasha, are you directing that to Ms. Kasha or
I think
Dr.
so,
Conti?
yeah.
You can direct it to me, and I'm going to say,
Okay.
I don't really, could
Okay.
you repeat the question?
Yeah.
It's not an interesting dollar amount, but just the policy. I would assume that in general, if there's expenses that are directly correlated to income going into a revolving account, that it would make sense to couple it with that revolving account rather than the operating budget. So the game tickets are an example of that. You know, I'm just wondering why that's in the operating budget versus your revolving account.
And is it a contracted service, is it a material, or is it a salary?
Let me find it. I think it's a supply, yeah.
Is that for buying the tickets themselves, or?
Page 122.
Correct, yes.
Ms. Rye, we could look into that. I think that might be actually for buying the physical tickets, so, but we could, you're saying, could we purchase that out of the revolving?
Well, it just seems it's tied to that specific revenue source. It makes sense as a general policy. I would think you would want to do that.
Yes.
Okay, great. I just wanted to make sure I wasn't missing something about the policy. Okay. There's, just find the line item here. On page 123, there's insurance for athletic and student accident catastrophic. Is that health or liability? What kind of insurance is that? That's page 123.
Oh, okay, thank you. Good, please.
It's insurance
What kind?
for liability for like catastrophic, just above and beyond our,
It's liability insurance?
yeah.
Okay, so I'm just curious, I presume the schools have some general liability policy. Why wouldn't it be folded into that as opposed to be a separate policy?
It's just above and beyond what is covered in that other binder.
Okay.
I'm not sure why they're not together.
It seems odd to buy a separate policy for that rather than just, bump up the limit or something on the other one, but, okay, if that's the cost-effective way to do it, I guess is why I'm really asking.
We can look into that.
Okay, thanks. And, let's see. There's, let me just get the page reference here. Didn't organize them quite that way. So I was a little confused. This is on page 123 again, I guess. There's reconditioning removed from the budget of $15,000. I remember there was that whole laundry machine thing going on, and that all makes sense. But the total of the budget remained the same despite that $15,000 coming out, which effectively means it was increased by 5%. So I'm just curious why the budget didn't go down by the 15,000 that was removed.
So, Ms. Kasha, do you know the answer to that, or Dr. Conti?
No, we'll ask Mr. Hart when we get in touch with him. So
Okay.
we can answer that.
Okay.
All right.
I'm not sure why.
So it's removed, but it wasn't really removed, I guess is what it seems like.
Might have been reallocated somewhere else, so we'll let you know.
Right, okay. And then sort of similar, let me find this. On page 124, I'm not sure I entirely understood this. It says, was fully removed from budget in 2017-18. We're looking to have it added back. But there's a budget of 34,000 still, so it doesn't seem like it was fully removed. So I'm not sure I'm clear on what the it is and what was fully removed, and if it was fully removed, why is there 34,000 there?
So, Ms. Kasha, do you have the
Sure.
answer to that? Great.
So in 2017, or the FY18 budget, it was removed and supported from the athletic revolving because of the high dollar amount of that was not a sustainable
Yep.
long-term plan. But after year one, and we had added back 34,000 into operating, and me and Mr. Hart have sort of been monitoring these numbers to see if that is sustainable in that account going forward, and where it stands now, having half in the operating and half in revolving is working.
Okay, all right, so just to make sure I understand, it sounds like the budget was reduced, in the operating budget was reduced basically from 68 to 34 is the net of that.
Yes.
And part of it's from revolving. Got
Yes.
it, that makes sense, okay. And that's everything for athletics, thank you.
All right. Any further questions on athletics? Okay, the next category is art. Art, and I don't know if anyone has questions on that specifically.
I have a
Dr.
comment
Conti?
on art,
Okay.
so, and I'll look at the budget now, but I know that we've been trying to make Francis Wyman work. Remember, Francis Wyman has five classrooms a section over 5 grades, grades 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We've always had support and art teacher support, usually a part-time at Francis Wyman. We got by this year, but the schedule just really isn't sustainable. There's no break, and there's not enough time for setup. So I know that we were looking for a .4 FTE in elementary art. And again, I think we need to restore that position just to allow the full-time art teacher cover the sections there. So I believe that's reflected somewhere.
But would that be in the operating budget?
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
being salaries.
Be under salaries.
Other than that, I'm not sure there's a bunch of changes.
Okay, other committee members have questions on the art department?
No.
Ms. Monaco?
It's not a question on the art department. I just, I'm wondering, were you planning to bring in the athletic director to discuss athletics or not?
He was scheduled to be here, but the girls' hockey team has a playoff game, so he was gonna be here. Tonight, do you want him to come back?
He'd love to come back for another night, I can almost
No,
guarantee
I'm
it.
not, I'm not asking that. I think Mr. Eiler's questions kind of are pointing out the fact that he's not here. And would you like him to come back to answer questions?
I think as long as, you chase down these few things, that's fine.
Or I'm thinking, Mr. Eiler, we have a subcommittee meeting coming up, and that might be easier for him, because it's, they're at 5 o'clock, so.
And I'm not sure issues that require him, if you've got answers, that maybe that's great too.
And so to further that, were you planning on having anyone from phys ed and health, or did, we had Matt?
We had Matt, and again, I think that he had a conflict tonight, so.
Okay, and what about the science center?
Again, Wendy would show up whenever, I just think she couldn't make it tonight.
Yeah, so I think the problem that we've run into here is that there are questions we can't answer because the people that run those departments aren't here to tell us what they put in the budget.
And that's fine, I don't think they need to be here as long as the answers are chased down, that, we don't need to suck down hours of their time, that's fine.
Okay.
And if you're comfortable with that, what I'd propose then is that we continue to go through each department, and if there are questions that cannot be answered by the people here, then we'll make sure, as Dr. Conti said, that those questions get answered. Is everyone comfortable with that? Okay. So, so I think we're done with art. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Okay. Mr. Eiler. Mhm.
Just a quick one on this. There's a failing projector mentioned there. I'm just curious, is that are the same classroom projectors we're talking about, or is this a different kind of projector?
Mr. Cunha? Yeah.
It is for a classroom projector. We do have a line item in the IT budget to do a replacement.
That's why I'm wondering, shouldn't that just be in the IT budget?
It should be, but the way we have it set up, and obviously with the high school being such a big school, it's not up for rotation currently. So to not have that affect the classroom, it's added into there, under their supply items.
Okay, it just seems odd for one department to be putting a projector in and none of the other departments do, but that's up to you guys how you want to deal with that.
It didn't die on appropriate cycle.
Yeah.
Right.
It happens,
Right.
yeah, all right.
Very rude.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. I'm sorry, I was thinking we were done with the athletic budget. So the art budget. So is that your only question for that? Ms. Marcus? If you could find a microphone, great, or they could pass a microphone.
I'll move over here.
Thank you.
Diana Marcus. I just want to reiterate my concern about making sure that we have additional staffing in the art department at Francis Wyman. If you look at the actual number of students and the number of sections that are being addressed, the teacher there is currently on overload for the number of students and the number of sections. And in fact, by my count, is currently doing about 20% more in the way of sections than the next school along, which is of a comparable size. So there's an incredible inequity there, and we have one teacher who, quite frankly, is pulling the work of 1.5.
Okay. Ms. Monaco?
Is there a space issue?
No, they can share a classroom. Mrs. Monaco, they just need to pick up sections and setup has been the issue.
That said, it would be nice to have more space.
Yeah, it would.
Yes, it would.
So the issue is not enough staffing, in your opinion?
Correct, yes, there is definitely not enough staffing, and they were definitely understaffed.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, other questions on the art budget? And, okay. And then the next category is physical education. Are there any questions for physical education at this point? Yes, any committee members? No. Mr. Eiler?
Thank you.
Mhm.
You're very patient.
What page you on? Help us out here, too, please.
One moment, please. It's section 55. I can get you page number
Line
in a moment
55.
here.
Page 2, line 55.
126. So the first one is just about the project adventure. I just wanted to make sure, obviously to run that, you need helmets, harnesses, robes, hardware, and all that. Was that part of the original warrant article, or is that an additional expense?
I believe it was part of the warrant, and then we also had the existing equipment that was able to be used on the new course. So the
Okay.
harnesses, some of the ropes. So I think they supplemented some of that, but a lot of the existing equipment stays.
Okay, so it's well-equipped. I just wanted to make sure that we didn't have a course without the appropriate
It's more than
equipment.
well-equipped. I think it's, there's not many examples of something like that around. So it's,
Excellent,
Yeah.
okay. And then related to that, let me get the page number on this. Well, let me just ask in general. It looks like the middle school is involved with using the Project Adventure course also. Is that the plan, or?
So I know the middle school staff are being trained on March, what's that professional day, 11th, 9th? March 9th, and actually in the afternoon, it's going to be open for staff to go out and go up on it with the teachers. So they're actually going to be out there. I don't know what the plan for middle school students coming over to use it is, but I know the staff is being trained, so I'm sure between Matt Jackling and Ms. Purchase, there's been a conversation about bringing kids over, but I don't know that. for
Okay,
sure. I'm assuming they're training the staff.
presumably you're training them because students will follow?
I think so, yeah.
Okay.
yeah. I'm making an assumption, but I believe that's the
Okay.
plan.
It probably ought to close the loop on that to be sure, but seems plausible.
Mr. Cunha or Mr.
yeah.
Dr. Conti, do you have anything to add to that?
Thank you. If I could just jump in. So what you're seeing in the budget, the three components, there are two indoor aspects of Project Adventure, one at the high school, one at the middle school. And those are the rock walls, the climbing apparatuses, the inspection of those, and then the training. And then there's the new outdoor course that you're seeing outside. That's why that one's a little bit more money for the inspection and the training on that. But there are three separate courses. One's a new one, which is the warrant article, which is outside on the practice field.
Okay, well, that was actually part of my confusion, I'll admit, because on page 129, it's $1,000 for the high school Project Adventure. And on page 127, it's $1,100 for the middle school Project Adventure. It's listed as inspection,
It's in
training, and
the-
maintenance. So I'm glad you explained that there's these other courses, because I didn't understand why there would be middle school maintenance if, but it's not the outdoor course we're talking about.
That's only one aspect of it.
So
That's why you see it as three separate line items.
Right, well-
Indoor high school, outdoor high school, and then indoor middle school.
Okay, I only saw two line items. There's another one that's
Yeah,
E-
127.
is on 120,
129.
on 130. What
And
what
then
does
130.
EL stand for? Yeah, that's what I was guessing. That's why I'm confused. So I guess I'm confused then. It seems like the high school one should be more, since we have this outdoor elements, but it's not, so.
Right, but right now, so again, sorry to the.
Came up, Mr. Cunha.
The high school one outside, obviously being brand new, and the warrant article has a little bit different of the existing maintenance and training program. That is built into it.
So we sort of got the first year built into the Warren article, as it
Right.
were.
So
Okay.
when you go to, let's say, Pine Glen and Fox Hill, you'll see on the walls, there's some rock climbing elements and things like that. Smaller gyms, smaller structures. So again, the price goes down.
Okay, that makes
Mostly
more
the-
sense now. Okay, good, that all makes sense. And let's see, what else do we have there? Oh, okay, let me just find the line item on this. Where is it? 5855. Here we go. Page 136. The IHT Spirit System for 15,000. I did a quick look at that. My very much layman's view of that is it looked like a fancy Fitbit system for 15,000. So
A fancy what?
A fancy Fitbit system. So can you explain to me why that's a totally wrong concept, or why we aren't getting $100 Fitbits instead?
Okay, does anyone here have an answer to that question?
I think I've seen systems like this. It's a little bit, it's more geared toward, if it's the one I'm thinking about, if they're geared towards elementary students. It's a little bit different than a Fitbit, but I would really need Matt I can have him write a summary for you.
Yeah, if you would just sort of highlight, what makes that worth 15,000. It looks like a heart rate monitor with some monitoring software and et cetera. And the related question would just be, how many students does two systems handle? How many devices are you getting with that?
Okay.
So that, presumably it's more than two students at a time.
Yeah, usually a class set.
Okay.
Okay.
And That's it for PE. Thank you.
All right, so any other questions on PE and health? Okay, so correct, that covered health as well, right? Yeah. And so the last section is Science Center.
I've seen that on
And I want to know if any of the committee members have any questions on this part of the budget.
Science Center, no.
No? Science Center and Ways and Means, any questions? No questions, okay. We all love the Science
Oh,
Center.
come on,
I know,
John.
can she
We
put
do.
the name today?
All
Yeah.
right, good.
Yeah, we missed her
Something
coming in with the
happened,
hawk that scared people last year, so,
We will have her bring a bird in
a
soon.
visitor, okay.
Only if it's a bird.
Okay.
No snakes, you don't want
Bunnies are
snakes?
cute.
An alligator, okay,
Yes,
yeah.
she surprised me with the alligator at a function.
Oh, yeah, I remember.
I turned, and there he was.
Yeah, yeah. All right, so as far as I can tell, we have covered all of the budget sessions that we were scheduled to do tonight. Is there anything that, regarding the budget, that we didn't cover that somebody feels that we missed? No? So the next item is public participation. Is there anyone here who has something they'd like to discuss that's not on the agenda?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Chair,
Yes,
could I just
Dr.
interject?
Conti.
I think there was a meeting this afternoon with the town government on some updates with the coronavirus.
Oh,
And
okay,
so it
thank
did make
you.
the agenda just because it happened this afternoon. Patrick, do you want to do a brief summary? And then we're going to get all this information out
Yeah,
to
we have
families online.
We had a letter on Friday that was ready to go, but then this meeting was organized from the
Okay.
town, and Ms. Kasha and I attended today.
Okay.
It was police, fire, Board of Health, senior, all the departments in town were invited. And so it was right after Susan Luminello got off of a national call that was for local boards of health with the CDC. So, again, there's a lot of information. The town has a link to an updated page they have through the Board of Health that we will also link on our webpage, as well as this letter that we have ready to go out. But right now, again, just a couple quick things. This is, again, right from the CDC today, guidance for schools which do not have COVID-19 identified in their community. Sounds very similar to us trying to put the damper on any type of virus going through the district. So again, ensure, emphasize actions such as staying home when sick, appropriately covering coughs and sneezes, cleaning frequently touched surfaces, and washing hands often. And they did also, one other thing that I highlighted was that schools are not expected to make decisions about dismissal or canceling events on their own. This would be kind of a community decision we'd make in conjunction with the Board of Health if it came to the point where we were dealing with confirmed cases in town. So again, we're a long way off from that. Again, have this letter that I'll share that's got a lot of the same details about what you would do to prevent the flu. The other thing I wanted to mention is our nurse leader, Barbara Conley, will be in daily contact with the Board of Health just to update them on our absences due to illness. And of course, if we saw a spike that we thought had any connection to this coronavirus that's going around right now, we would have a larger meeting at that point. But again, we don't expect that. It was a heavy flu season. We saw at, again, Fox Hill at one point this year, one classroom in particular, I think it was a first grade classroom, if I'm not mistaken, that was just like 75% of them out at one point. That's how these things tend to go. So we're not sure what to expect here, but we have our eyes wide open. We're in daily communication with the local Board of Health, who's in daily communication with the state DPH and taking updates from the CDC as they come.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for that update. And so that's going to go out to all the families?
This letter's pretty much ready to go. I just want to have Dr. Conti look it over because his name's on it. And then we'll get that out either first thing in the morning, if not this evening. I'd like to get it out this evening.
Great. Okay, thank you. Are there any other topics, Dr. Conti? So I was asking if there was any other public participation tonight. Seeing none, I would accept a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Abstain? Opposed? The chair votes aye. That's 500. Thank you all.